a daily program powered by the Truth Network.
This is kind of a great thing, and I'll tell you why.
Where pop culture, current events, and theology all come together.
Speak your mind.
And now, here's today's Truth Talk Live host.
It's around the corner. It's coming up Monday. It is Memorial Day. And this Memorial Day, as we begin to ponder and think, like, God, what do you have for us? You know, as we begin to remember. So who are you remembering, and what has their life or sacrifice taught you about God's purpose, right? So as we're just really blessed in this country to have this opportunity to celebrate, right, these that sacrificed everything that we might have freedom. Or maybe there's something else that you remember on Memorial Day. We would love to hear it. It's a live show. We need your calls. 866-348-7884, 866-348-7884. This Memorial Day, who are you remembering, and what has their life or sacrifice taught you about God's purpose? And who better to help me with Memorial Day, right, than Dr. Date the Word Carson himself, who's coming to you live from the Liberty State. I think it's called is it called the Liberty State, Dr. Carson?
The Keystone State.
Oh, there you go. But there's a bell up there from what I understand.
There is a bell in Pennsylvania.
And so very significant when it comes to Memorial Day, but also the state of Virginia, from where you hail, is very significant when it comes to Memorial Day, right?
Yes, sir. We have several major memorials to remember those who gave all. We come to Memorial Day and you think about some gave all, but all gave some, but some gave all. And especially we think about the D-Day Memorial in Bedford, Virginia.
Yeah, and in that, if you go to the Bedford Memorial, you're going to see this insignia. And on that insignia, which represents D-Day, where you know how many people gave their all that particular day, there is a dog, a lion, and a pelican. And so one of the bonus things you can do and call in today and have fun, we might even give you something out of the Kingdom Pursuits prize vault if you can come up with the answer to what did what did the dog, stand for? What did the lion stand for? What did the pelican, why did they use that particular image? We would love your thoughts on that. I think it's going to blow you away when you hear what the pelican stands for. I'm still standing in amazement of what these different animals stand for on that insignia there on the D-Day Memorial. But again, the question for you to call in at 866-348-7884 that we would love to hear is this Memorial Day, who are you remembering? And what has their life or sacrifice taught you about God's purpose? So how about you, Doc? When I ask that question, who comes to mind?
Yeah, right off the bat, Sergeant Jesse Strong, a young man that was serving in the Marines in Iraq during the Iraq War. And I still remember the phone call, January 26, 2005. Pastor Carson, you need to be aware that last night Jesse Strong was killed in action, and it was a blow. This was one fine young man who had served at Liberty in student leadership. He was a discipler. He made things at Liberty. He wasn't one that just got to sit around. He stirred things up for the Lord, and he had a contagious smile, and he had the most unreal laugh. If we got him laughing, it was a memorable moment, and he signed up to serve our country. And on January 26, 2005, but as he was on a mission with other men, he would lose his life. And Dr. Jerry Falwell and myself would conduct his funeral up in Vermont and then do a memorial service for him at Liberty University. So every Memorial Day, I always think about Jesse Strong. That's the first person I think about.
How about did you get a chance to know his parents prior to? Did you meet them certainly at the funeral?
I did know them just in, get to meet you there at Liberty when they brought him there to Liberty. And then we did spend quite a bit of time with them at the funeral. And then when we brought them down to Lynchburg for the memorial service, they are just a phenomenal, godly family. And Memorial Day becomes not just remembering the soldier that would have died, but remembering their families and the heartache that they feel. Those Gold Star families, they're heroes of our nation as well. They lost more than others have lost.
Oh yeah, they have, and that's the beautiful thing. And so, does that resonate to you? Is there somebody that you know of like that help us all remember something special? Make Memorial Day what it's supposed to be. That kind of thing this year. You got to call in and share it. 866-348-7884. 866-348-7884. We are so blessed, Dr. Carson, to live in such a country that has had so much remarkable heroism on the idea of, freedom itself, clear back even before the Revolutionary War. Well, I'll get into my own story a little later in the show, but I can tell you that it's almost remarkable that God orchestrated such things like this, that we would be able to enjoy having this radio, right? Like, where else are you going to hear Christian radio like it is in the United States? I mean, there's a lot of countries that there's no way in the world, they're going to let something like this go out over the airwaves, where you can actually explain that the greatest sacrifice, the true memorial of Memorial Day, is Jesus, right? And so, that's a big part of what we celebrate on Memorial Day, because the ultimate sacrifice was made by, the one perfect man that walked the earth, right, Doc?
Absolutely. And he laid down his life so that we could have life. And so part of that Memorial Day as a Christian is to remember not only the sacrifice of a father or a brother or a good friend, but to remember also the ultimate sacrifice that was made, because God loved us so much. He wanted us to have a new freedom, a liberty. I think you and I talked about that before, that he came to proclaim liberty, and it sets us free to be able to pursue the things that he wants for us. And you look at what our soldiers through the years have done to make sure we can pursue the things that God wants us to pursue.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal when you think about it that, most of the men that gave up their lives to serve our country, were under 30. Many of them under 20.
Yeah, they had their whole lives in front of them.
And it's a remarkable thing, and it's a beautiful thing that we have this time of year to celebrate this. And part of it is to hear from you. 866-348-7884 is the number to call in. You got time during the break to make that happen. Again, this Memorial Day, who are you remembering, and what has their life or sacrifice taught you about God? 866-348-7884. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be right back with this Memorial Day special.
Truth Talk Live.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Remembered in glory, right? Today, this weekend, we pause not just for a long weekend, but for long shadows cast by lives laid down. Flags wave not in pride alone, but in sacred memory of the brave who gave what we cannot repay. They marched into the unknown, carrying courage like a cross, echoing the one who said, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down his life for his friends," John 15:13. This is a day for names carved in stone, but for remembered in glory also. A day when freedom whispers, someone stood for you. So we decorate graves, but more than that, we consecrate hearts. We remember not just who died, but why they died, that we might live in liberty, that we might worship in peace, that we might speak his name without fear. May we never forget, not just the cost, but the calling to live lives worthy of their sacrifice and of his. So how about you? This Memorial Day, who are you remembering, and what has their life or sacrifice taught you about God's purpose as we enter into this weekend? It's a wonderful thing to ponder, don't you think, Dr. Carson?
Oh, absolutely. I think when you do consider what makes America unique, it's the fact that we do have this Memorial Day. And, it starts coming up on us with there's the Memorial Day sale, and there's going to be the opening of the pools on Memorial Day. But this country made a decision 100 years plus ago that we would remember those who died so that we can live. And we should pause and think about and give thanks for those fallen soldiers, but also to remember the families that carry the pain, and but also call ourselves to a greater level of sacrifice ourselves. If they were willing to give their lives, we need to be dedicated to making sure freedom always is at the forefront, that we don't take our freedom for granted.
Right, and we put out this question at the beginning of the show, and by the way, we would really love to hear from you about who you are, really meditating on. 866-348-7884, 866-348-7884. On the D-Day memorial insignia, there is a dog, there is a lion, and there is a pelican. And so we are willing to open up the Kingdom Pursuits Prize Vault. Nick is in here with me. If you would like to take that on, what does the dog represent? What does the lion represent? And, oh, man, we might have to dig deep to get you something if you can tell us what the pelican represents, which is absolutely spectacular. I think you will love it. If you've never heard that before, you call us. We would love to talk with you. 866-348-7884. Who are you remembering, and what has their life or sacrifice taught you about God's purpose, right? And so, interestingly, when I think about Memorial Day personally, I had like eighth great grandmother, and you would think Memorial Day and a grandmother. Well, this one it just calls for that. During the French and Indian War, she lived in upstate New York, where most of my family came from, especially my mother's family, that was the relative that this grandmother was. And in those days, unfortunately, sometimes the Indians would come and raid those towns in the middle of the night, and they would tomahawk all the men and take all the women up to Canada as slaves. And one night they came into my family's town, and they killed all the men, including my grandmother's husband. And then they marched them all as slaves up into up into Canada. But understand that this is in upstate New York, in the mountains in the Iranics, where you can't imagine how cold it was, but they were in their literally night clothes because they pulled them right out of their cabins and then marched them. Now, she was pregnant at the time with what would turn out to be my sixth great grandfather. And to think of her courage that night, and again, it was a war. And she could have, how easy, if you were pregnant, can you imagine marching in the middle of the night, being a prisoner with Indians? It just had to be a terrifying moment. And whenever I think of, my own family, I think, wow, here's what I remember the question, what was God's purpose, right? God gave her that kind of whatever it was, strength, that kind of belief, that kind of faith to make that march, that because she would live and she would end up having my grandfather and he would be raised a Christian, and that would lead down to my mother's life so that someday Robby would be here. And God has been protecting all these people throughout the generations that you would be here. And one of the ways that he protected is obviously through the life of his own son, that would lead to a Christian nation that would allow the freedom to have liberty. Right, Doc? I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it sure is. And when we look back on our ancestry, we see those who sacrificed, they suffered. We'll get to the 4th of July to celebrate our independence, but the Memorial Day puts it back on the focus. Many had to sacrifice so we could enjoy what we do today. I'm hoping that there would be people on this coming Memorial Day that would go to at least one Memorial Day event. In Winston-Salem, there's the Carolina Field of Honor, and we have gone there several times on Memorial Day. They do a tremendous program. It's at 11 a.m., and all branches are represented there at that Carolina Field of Honor. And so for those that are listening in the Winston-Salem area, if you've never been to the Carolina Field of Honor for Memorial Day, you might want to consider it. It's just, they do it. It's done very, very well. And I think, Robby, you did one of those shows not long ago about what brings tears to your eyes. When they play taps, I can't hold back. The tears are going to come.
Yeah, that there is a way that can be played that really touches your heart with the price that was paid. Especially, I couldn't agree with you more that those parents had a gigantic sacrifice or a gigantic heroism in the whole equation. And maybe you know some parents along those ways, and you would like to call us, 866-348-7884. And our other question about on the D-Day insignia, we talked about there's a dog, there's a lion, and a pelican. I'm going to give you one of them so that you could call us on the others. You can sure give it a try. The lion, you might guess, stands for bravery. I thought I'd give you the easy one so that you could call in and tell us if you know what the dog means or the pelican on the D-Day insignia. 866-348-7884. We got Bill is in King, North Carolina. Bill, you're on Truth Talk Live.
This is Gary. I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'm not.
I hear you. I'm sorry. Sometimes they give me the wrong name, and this must be the time. Hi, Gary. I appreciate you calling, and what you got for us?
Well, my dad was a B-17 co-pilot in World War II.
Wow.
35 missions over Germany, successful. The plane he flew in was quite notorious. There's pictures of it. It was called $5,000. It was the 5,000th B-17 built by Boeing.
Wow.
Over 30,000 people that built that signed it. It flew in the battles, uncamouflaged in that condition. And as a matter of fact...
Gary, I hate that music means we got to go to break, and we can hardly wait, believe me. Can you hang on through the break for us?
Yes.
Oh, we're excited. I'm so glad you called, Gary. We got Bill is coming up next after Gary. But we can hardly wait to hear their story. Let's hear yours. Call us, 866-34-TRUTH.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First we fight for
This Memorial Day, who are you remembering, and what has their life or sacrifice taught you about God's purpose? Oh, we've Got an amazing caller here. We've got Gary, and he's got an amazing story about his father who flew B-17s. We would love to hear yours. 866-348-7884, 866-348-7884. There wasn't a much more dangerous mission than flying B-17s over Germany during World War II. Gary, I salute your father. That's amazing.
It really is. It's mind-boggling. He had the privilege, I guess, of going a little bit later than some of them. I think their crew started flying in May of '44, and by that point, things started to improve a lot. You know, the initial completed missions was 25, and they upped it to 35 by the time he was there, because the statistics, they were doing better. But the death rate was just horrendous, even at that point. And then the fact that his plane was flying uncamouflaged, when it flew above, it reflected the light more. They're flying at daylight, so they were a prime target for the enemy. They were going after them, but they survived it all. He came back and went back to civilian life and was called back again into the Air Force during the Korean War. He was in Texas, not flying a plane, but he was on the plane the last day of training. They were getting ready to the next day to go up to New England, and they were going to be flying a C-97 cargo plane. But there was apparently a hydraulic system failure or something like that. The plane was doing touch-and-go landings in Texas, and they lost control and everybody died. I was 6 years old at the time. And
wow.
It's only been in recent years when Memorial Day has come up that I even felt it legitimate to think of him on Memorial Day in the sense that you think of those that gave their life in battle. But it's my understanding that legitimately people that lose their life in accidents like that are deserving the same level of respect and honor as folks that were in battle and lost their lives in battle. I guess there's many thoughts I could share with you. I don't know how much time you have, but I reconnected with some of the crew members. In fact, some of the crew members were close with my mom. My mom was a widow for 25 years after that. She raised myself and my younger brother.
Wow.
And ultimately, my brother and I got to go back to the base that he flew out of in England, in Snetterton, England. The year after 9/11, they erected a monument there at the base, and just amazing, good, positive experiences of the people that were there. And in addition to all that, the crew members themselves, the final surviving member of that crew was Johnny Warrington, who lived in Detroit. And the benefit of the internet, I got to connect with him. His son called me years later. I didn't know who he was, but something had been posted, and he had my contact. He asked if I'd like to talk to his dad, and I was thrilled to do that. And eventually, I got to meet with him on several occasions, one time of which I was able to video an oral history series of questions that the 8th Air Force Historical Society was encouraging the vets to respond to build the knowledge base and the lessons learned kind of thing. Anyway, I'm talking far too much, but
no, that's the reason is we want to hear, because as a 6-year-old boy to lose his dad, your mom, her courage, but clearly, from my standpoint, God came in and as a dad in so many different ways for you, because we can hear the man that you've become. It's a beautiful thing. So now you're not taking too much of our time, and we are so grateful for your family's sacrifice. But I am very curious of when you had a chance to talk to that man, did he have some words about your father?
He did, as a matter of fact. I mean, I could just tell you so many stories. It's unbelievable. You can actually see an interview with Johnny Waring. It's on the internet. He came down with cancer. He was like 91, or I forgot exactly how old. But anyway, his priest became an aficionado of World War II and sponsored Johnny going to various events, like the World War II Museum in New Orleans, et cetera, et cetera. Many stories here. But anyway, the final day, this ceremony, a whole bunch of the family members, like myself, my brother, and other members, the Bombardiers family, I can't think of the name at the moment, but it starts with an L, all gathered to honor Johnny. Even though he was fighting cancer, he wanted to devote the time and the energy to be with all of the extended family members. When I met one of the members of the family up in the Air Force Museum here in Savannah, it was like we were family members, and yet I'd never seen him before. Lanahan was the bombardier.
Wow.
And but Johnny made the comment to me that he could always tell when my dad was flying, in that the plane flew more aggressively. Apparently my dad wanted to be a fighter pilot. When he had the privilege of flying, he flew it more like a fighter to the degree he could within the regulations,
That's a beautiful, beautiful story. Well, Gary, thank you so much for your call today. It was really an honor. And what was your dad's name again?
His Harry Victor Weiss, W-E-I-S-E.
Harry Victor Weiss, we honor you and your son. That's awesome, man.
Well, thank you so much for doing this program, and thank you to all the vets that have given their life throughout history. There's so much more we could share on this whole subject.
We need to at some point. Yeah, well, stay tuned, Gary. We're going to have more conversations, but I couldn't agree with you more. That those that are killed in accidents, they're preparing for the battle that your dad, fought. And so, there isn't really no difference. That obviously, if people aren't prepared to fight, then we can't fight. And they're in the service of their country. So he died in the line of duty. I mean, that's the bottom line. I
got to spend the night on the Gettysburg battlefield and on the Valley Forge winter encampment. Wow. As a Boy Scout. And, so those kinds of experiences, there's so much more we could talk about, but I know you need to go, and I need to go.
Thank you, Gary.
Can I say one other thing in closing?
Sure, go ahead.
It was recently I realized that God blessed me in that he trusted me and our family with that loss and that suffering. And I think as a result of that, my walk with him and my desire to know him and to serve him, and that meant as well with my mother and my brother, increased dramatically. And so he can take every negative and turn it into a positive. That's just one example.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful word, Gary. God bless you. Thank you so much for calling in. It's amazing. So we got Bill has been hanging on a long time, but we need your call, 866-348-7884. Bill is in King, North Carolina. Bill, you're on Truth Talk Live.
Thank you. That's an amazing story. I so honor the World War II veterans.
Yeah, it really was.
So I'm a 23-year veteran of the Navy. I've got 2 combat deployments, one to Iraq and the other one to Afghanistan. And this holiday, if you will, can be very difficult. One thing, I was in direct support of Special Forces on both my deployments, Army Special Forces, Navy Special Forces, the whole, whatever they needed, we supported. I was a Navy CB.
Wow.
And
well, thank you. Thank you for your service. Before we go anywhere else, man, we honor you. Wow. And I imagine it got really close and personal, didn't it?
Yes, very close and personal. But one thing that we did, and I was in leadership in both of my deployments, and when we were in the rear or behind the wire, if you will, on base, when we had a member get killed in action, there was what the military refers to as a ramp ceremony. And at a ramp ceremony, they take the deceased member and pay honor to them and load them into the back of an aircraft, and they leave country. And there's no words that can explain what that ceremony's like. The Memorial Day services here that in the States pale to compare to what those ramp ceremonies are like. And when you have the groups of people that I was in support of, shoulder to shoulder, honoring their team member as they have to bid farewell, because the mission has to go on. They can't just stop and travel back to the States. It's they load their team member up and give their final farewell and then go right back into it and do the job we ask them to do. And those ceremonies and those scenarios are very, very difficult. And I struggle with this holiday because there's just not a lot of heartfelt memories for
right
people
it's
local.
Meant to be one thing, but it gets turned into something that becomes a holiday that where people take it lightly, but there's nobody taking it lightly at those ramp services. Like, I can't tell you, Bill, I've never heard of that, but oh my goodness. Dr. Carson, have you ever heard of a ramp service?
Yes. And they did that for Jesse.
Wow. Well, Bill, I hope you'll stay. Now we got to go to another break. I hope you'll stay on with us, Bill. We also have Steve is in Ohio, but we need you still. You can call us at 866-348-7884. Can you stay on with us, Bill?
I can.
I sure hope so. God bless you, and thank you again so much for your call and for all your calls. We'll be right back with a whole lot more on Memorial Day.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder.
This Memorial Day, who are you remembering, and what has their life or sacrifice taught you about God's purpose? And when we were in the last segment, we have this amazing caller, Bill, who was served in 2 combat units, it sounded like, amazingly recently, and he was sharing, how Memorial Day was given as a huge gift to be able to remember things that are very, very, very precious to those people who served, and very, very precious to the people's families that were involved in it. And it's tough if you see people making light of it when it's so, right, Bill? You can understand honor in a way I can't understand honor because I haven't seen that. I haven't been there. But honor is a gigantic thing at that point, right?
It's very, very big, and for the communities that I was supporting, as well as the CB community, were very, very close knit, very tight knit. We hold our own at very high regard, and when we suffer loss, it affects us all, and for Memorial Day services, as much as people want to honor, and remember, and I appreciate that, but not to give it the homage and the honor that it deserves, I struggle with a great deal. Scripted speeches and people speaking on things that they've not experienced. It just, I really struggle with that.
I'll bet. I imagine. But let me just say that you're clearly honoring, by calling in today, all of us to know what that really is, right?
Well, thank you. I just like to, I just, my point and purpose, I guess, is to, to really put faces with names. There is a lot of veterans that have served in those roles that have lost teammates, that have lost, people very close to them in service to our country, and seek them out and honor them. Put faces with names. Make it personal. Make it real for yourself. You want to honor. You want to give Memorial Day the honor that it deserves. Then seek out a Gold Star mother or a wife or a family member that has lost a service member. Those people need support all the time.
That's absolutely beautiful, Bill. God bless you, and thank you again for what you've given to your country and now what you've given this audience, because I don't think anybody listening will forget what you shared today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this platform.
You're welcome. God bless. Bye-bye. All right, Doc, that was powerful, right?
Yep, very, very powerful. I think about Jesse Strong's mom. Memorial Day became so different for her. We have painful longings that we go through after we lose a loved one. And for her, Memorial Day became a painful longing because, yes, we were remembering her son, and she had to remember her son. And it's tough. And so I so appreciate what Bill said. This is a day to remember not just the fallen, but the ones that were left behind who still had to bear the pain. And it's a very special day. It should not be handled lightly.
Right, or a 6-year-old son named Gary. Wow. So we got Steve is in Ohio. Steve, you're on Truth Talk Live, but we still got time to call if you want, 866-348-7884. Steve, how are you, sir?
Robby.
Yes, sir.
Robby, I'm fine, thank you. I just wanted to share, back in 2000 in Mercer County, Ohio, in Coldwater, I went to the Traveling Vietnam Wall Memorial.
Oh, wow, yeah.
In 2000, and I met a veteran there named Mark Jackson, and in front of him was his younger brother's Harley Davidson. His younger brother had been killed in Vietnam, and Mark had taken all of his younger brother's medals and incorporated on that motorcycle. And
wow.
When I went home that night, it bothered me a lot. I couldn't sleep. I thought of all those young soldiers that voluntarily left everything they loved and everyone they loved. And I couldn't sleep for a long time that night. And finally, I got up and walked down my hallway to my office and sat down and pulled out a legal pad and wrote at the top, "The final ride," and this followed. So many fought, so many died. Their country came first so we might ride. Freedom was bought for a price you won't know. Families behind, their bravery to show. They did it for you, they did it for me, so the red, white, and blue would always wave free. Some have come home one way or another. Some are still there, our comrades, our brothers. God guide them and keep them while they are still there. Those that are missing, let us always be aware. Our freedom was bought at the price of our vets. Let us pray to God their needs will be met. When we go through the day without a care, you might say, remember a vet cut freedom's way. When he takes his final ride in the here or the after, listen close and you'll hear his laughter. The callers went out, the enemy met. Never, never forget, freedom was bought at the cost of a vet.
That's beautiful. Steve, that's
powerful.
yeah.
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know where that came from because
I think you do.
I've never.
I know where it came from.
Yeah, and I think he worked that through me to just encourage all the veterans and their families. What incredible heroism they all showed, and
that's beautiful.
That's all I had.
That is absolutely, Steve. God bless you, and thank you for, again, you shared that with a lot of folks today, which is, the idea of the show is for our listeners on the Truth Network to share what God's doing, and he did that, and clearly did that through you.
Thank you, Robby, and God bless our vets.
God bless them. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yep.
Bye-bye. So, Doc, nobody called in with a guess because you stumped him with the pelican question. You stumped him apparently with the dog question. And so we don't have a lot of time left on the insignia, which I think is absolutely beautiful because, in fact, why don't you share a little bit about that D-Day in Bedford there? That's not Bedford Falls, but just Bedford, Virginia.
Bedford, Virginia, just outside of Lynchburg.
There were what percentage of – go ahead.
Well, there were on D-Day, June 6, 1944, 19 Bedford boys would lose their life as they stormed those beaches there in Normandy. 2 more would die shortly after. So 21 Bedford boys, and so they did a memorial there. It's beautiful, and they have an insignia there with a dog, with a lion, and with a pelican, and the lion, valor, bravery, and absolutely. And then there's the dog, and that was fidelity. And we heard some of our guys as they were talking, Bill especially. There's a band of brothers. You were committed to each other. But then the pelican, and when I first saw the pelican, Robby, I was like, what is that for? And I called one of the staff over to explain to me why the pelican. And this lady said a pelican is willing to pull from its own breast its meat so that it would begin to bleed so that its chicks could have something to eat and drink. It would sacrifice its own life so that others, their chicks, pelicans, would live. And that's what soldiers do. They give their life so others can live. So that's the pelican, or why they put the pelican there with the D-Day Memorial. And we're going to have a lot of people who are going to be at the beach this Memorial Day. I'd hope when they see a pelican, they'll be reminded. We had men and women throughout the decades, centuries now, that have sacrificed their lives so we can enjoy the freedoms we have. And there will be many more who will need to sacrifice one day for us to keep our freedom.
Yeah, I got to tell you that this show, I don't think I'll ever forget it. As some of the things that were shared, a 6-year-old boy losing his dad, and it's kind of neat how God orchestrated his being so connected to all those things of his dad and the memory of his dad and the people that were involved in what happened in those B-17s. If you're not familiar, those were like death traps that so many soldiers lost their lives. And the way he was dealing with the fact that his father was killed in the way that he was. And then Bill's call with the ramp services, man, who could ever forget? Yeah. So if you're just tuning in, man, you got to go listen to the podcast on this show. But I think we're going to play it as a special Memorial Day show on this coming Monday. If you missed it, you'll be able to hear Bill and you'll be able to hear Gary again and Steve's poem. It's all there.
Steve's poem. Wow.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks for listening.